The following video is brought to you in part by the amazing Patreon producers you see before you. If you'd like to show your support, you can do so at patreon.com/616entertainment. Your support means the world to me, and I love you so much. Now let's get to it. Have you ever stopped and thought about just how much professional wrestling has evolved over the last 50 plus years? Today we've got 7 hours of weekly WWE programming on cable television stretched across 3 distinct brands. All Elite Wrestling recently joined the party with a TV series of their own, featuring established stars alongside brand new faces in what is the first real alternative to WWE in years. That's today, but let's turn back the clock a little bit. In the 1960s, Verne Gagne held the AWA World Championship for over 7 years straight, regularly colliding with the likes of Mad Dog Vachon and Dick the Bruiser. On the other side of the country, we saw Hall of Famer Bruno Sammartino reign as the WWF Champion for 8 years before finally losing the title to Ivan Koloff in 1971. In the mid-80s, Hulkamania was running wild. There wasn't a kid in the world who wasn't saying their prayers and eating their vitamins on a daily basis in support of their hero, Hulk Hogan. The 80s slowly gave way to the 90s though, where many of the colorful, silly, downright ridiculous characters in the industry were put to rest in favor of more realistic, grounded, hard-hitting competitors and storylines. World Championship Wrestling hit its peak on the shoulders of Sting's feud with the NWO, and Goldberg's incredible undefeated streak. The World Wrestling Federation pushed the envelope further and further every week. Between D-Generation X's sophomoric antics and Sable's interesting attires, it was clear as day. Professional wrestling had undergone a dynamic evolution. But pro wrestling wasn't the only medium of entertainment evolving at a rapid pace. Back when Nick Bockwinkel won his first AWA World title in 1975, video games looked like this. The Magnavox Odyssey was the first ever home video game console, and most of you watching this weren't a twinkle in your parents' eye at the time of its release. Fast forward 10 years to Hulk Hogan's first WWF Championship victory, and The Legend of Zelda and Castlevania are blowing the minds of anyone who comes in contact with a controller. Tack on almost 10 more years, why not? Hulk Hogan is still in the title picture, and the WWF have their very own 16-bit video games on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. At the time, we all thought these titles were a blast, mostly because we didn't know what was just around the corner. The video games and pro wrestling evolutionary tracks were practically neck and neck heading into the late 90s, and that was not a bad thing. The wrestlers we loved to watch throw down week in and week out began to show more depth to their character. Sting was no longer just the brightly colored guy who would scream into the crowd. He became a dark, brooding, silent guardian of all things sacred in WCW. Just as the heroes and villains we cheered and booed began to show just how three-dimensional they were, so too did the video games that followed. WCW hit the 3D scene long before the WWF. WCW vs. the World released exclusively on the PlayStation in 1997, and the Nintendo 64 title, WCW vs. NWO World Tour, was not far behind. The World Wrestling Federation's previous 2 games, WrestleMania the arcade game and In Your House, weren't exactly what most fans were looking for. While WCW's offerings felt very close to the action we've become accustomed to seeing every week on television, the WWF's games looked more like a non-violent fusion of pro wrestling and Mortal Kombat. I'm not saying these games are terrible or anything, they have their charm, but think about it like this. Would you be satisfied if the only WWE game on the market was WWE Immortals? No, you wouldn't. The WWF's transition into the third dimension didn't come along after a new developer stepped in and shook things up. Iguana West, who would later be renamed to Acclaim Studios Salt Lake City, had been the team behind the World Wrestling Federation's video games dating all the way back to 1992's WWF Superstars 2 on the Game Boy. Back then, Iguana West were called Sculptured Software. Look, I know, these guys changed their name like 4 fucking times. What do you want me to do about it? The entirety of 1997 came and went without a single WWF game to hit the market, but Iguana were hard at work. The 2D days of Royal Rumble and Raw were officially behind us. As the summer of 1998 rolled around, we were mere days away from entering the War Zone.
You want to do what I do for a living, son? Then step into the WWF War Zone. Go ahead, create your own wrestler. Just another victim for Stone Cold to take out. 4-player action, 4 more kicked. A piece of trash like you is gonna get in the steel cage with me? All the moves in the world won't mean jack when you meet the Stone Cold Stunner. You wanna survive WWF War Zone? Stay away from me. And that's the bottom line, cause Stone Cold said so. Acclaim Sports.
Before we get too deep, I want to address something. I grew up with War Zone. I played the shit out of this game back in 1998, and most of the time, I had a blast. It wasn't until I put out the History of SmackDown in 2017 that I found out how many of you guys hate this game. Some of you guys leave scathing comments about Warzone if I so much as mention it. There have also been times where I'll take a shot or two at Warzone here and there because it's not the best game in the world, and then the other side comes out and wants to burn me alive for pointing out one of its flaws. At the very least, we know this. Warzone, at its core, could be the most divisive wrestling game ever released. The second we popped this disc into our PlayStation, it was clear we were in for a radical shift in direction. The colors and cascading logos from Royal Rumble were cool and all, but how in the hell can you beat a full motion video to open your game? This intro is still awesome at the tail end of 2019, but back in 1997, my friends and I couldn't even contain ourselves. We were marking out to the finishing moves and headbanging to the music like we were miniature Beavis and Buttheads. Just look at the winged eagle belt, man. Goodness me. Also, side note, this is the PlayStation version of the game, which is the version I grew up with. The Nintendo 64 wasn't as powerful a console and couldn't handle full motion video or CD quality music, so this introduction was sadly missing from that release. N64 kids, I'm sorry, you got the shit end of the stick here. But you guys eventually got revenge and no mercy, and we didn't, so eat shit. At the main menu, you might be wondering, why the hell are we in this big-ass warehouse? This seems random as hell. It's not random at all, though. These elevators, steel doors, and valve handles are pulled straight from the 1997 Raw intro. We're stepping into the war zone just like Stone Cold Steve Austin is. And just like Austin, we're looking to whoop someone's ass. Warzone offers 18 different wrestlers with which we can kick said ass. There are the obvious stars like The Undertaker, Kane, Stone Cold, and The Rock. But what the hell is Bret Hart doing here? Video games aren't made overnight, obviously. A tremendous amount of work goes into creating a functional game. But the Hitman had signed his WCW contract and left the World Wrestling Federation under shitty circumstances more than half a year before Warzone hit store shelves. I guess Iguana figured, fuck it, it's Bret Hart. He's the excellence of execution, ship it. I mean, British Bulldog is here too, and he left at the same time. And that's not to mention Ahmed Johnson and Shawn Michaels, who left the WWF in February and March of 1998, about 4 months before the game shipped. Man, this roster was a bit of a time capsule before this thing was even released, wasn't it? If you want a closer look at our playable characters, you can head over to the Biographies menu. The highlighted wrestlers' theme music plays while we get a chance to study their statistics and read about their backgrounds. How the fuck are these stats calculated anyway? WWE games have been giving wrestlers overall ratings for more than a decade now, but they usually consist of a simple number between 1 and 100. Warzone rates competitors out of chain links?
Making his way to the ring from Manchester, England, he stands 6 feet tall, weighing in at 253 pounds, with a strength rating of 5.5 chain links, the British Bulldog!
How fucking stupid is that? And how many chain links can fit in this box? 6.5? And hold on, why don't these chains at least all start from the beginning of a new link? These fucking boxes begin and end wherever they want on these arbitrary chains. Let's move on, this is madness. I can't talk about the biography screen for this whole goddamn video, that's ridiculous. It feels like 10 minutes ago now I mentioned kicking some ass, so let's get to it. What's the first thing anybody does for their introductory match in a new wrestling game? You go to exhibition mode, right? You put together a match you want to see and get the feel for the controls. I'm gonna be Kane and I want to fight... Oh, never mind. We don't get to choose our opponents in Warzone. The game books our competition for us. That's weird. We do get these sweet pre-match graphics though, which is pretty cool. Anyone who has ever played Warzone before knows exactly what I'm about to go into, but if you've never played this one, I feel the need to let you know up front, when it comes to controls, Warzone is my balls. Nearly everyone stands and walks around in the exact same pose. They look like they're waiting to get their photo taken from a local amateur wrestling tournament. Where they got this shit from, who knows, but it's not a good look. The gameplay itself is strange in an entirely different way. To set the scene, let's first take a look at WCW's biggest game from the same time period, WCW NWO Revenge. Let's say you want to nail a big move. The A button initiates a grapple, and the A and B buttons offer several different slams and strikes from there. Easy, right? Now back to War Zone. If you want to pull off a Samoan drop as The Rock, you just have to stand directly in front of your opponent and enter left, up, circle in quick succession.
What the fuck is this? Am I playing Mortal Kombat or a WWF game?
All of the moves are like this, and some are more complicated than others. For instance, Kane's chokeslam can be activated outside a grapple with left-left triangle. Using the circle button will initiate a grapple, where the chokeslam has now become tied to left-right circle.
What the fuck does that mean? Why does it switch buttons?
If that's too much for you, I don't know how you intend to land a finisher. We're not just flicking the stick when our meter is full like we can in the WCW games, unfortunately. In Warzone, we've got to wear our opponent's health bar down from green to red, and from there, every finisher has its own unique button combination. We can hit the sweet chin music out of nowhere just like in real life. We've just got to remember that pulling it off requires us to quickly input right, down, up, and then press square and X at the same time.
How the fuck am I supposed to remember that? 5 buttons for one move? And every finisher has a different combination? This is for the birds. This is for the shits and for the birds.
The controls, in retrospect, are dog shit, it's true. But back then, we didn't really know any better. What we knew was we had a brand new 3D WWF game on our hands, and we played the shit out of it. It's super easy in retrospect, 21 years later. Holy fuck! I almost just had a heart attack. There's no way I'm that fucking old. I'm gonna call the fucking cops.
911 emergency, how can I help you?
Hi, yeah, are you aware that WWF War Zone came out 21 years ago?
Sir, that can't be right.
No, that's what I said, but I looked into it. I'm pretty sure it's true.
Rick, this guy says War Zone came out 21 years ago. It did, June of 1998. Get the fuck out of here!
It would have been really easy for Iguana to pump Warzone out bare bones with no bells and whistles. They could have simply leaned on the new graphics, but they didn't. We've got singles matches and tag team matches, of course, but we can't sleep on the weapons match. This is before hardcore was added to the WWF lexicon, if you were wondering. We can't go searching under the ring for weapons, but we don't have to, as the fans themselves toss everything from steel chairs to television sets into the ring for us to pummel our poor opponents with. I mean, I assume it's the fans throwing these things. Maybe it's the god of wrestling himself trying to create a little anarchy. My absolute favorite part of a weapons match is that sometimes, only sometimes, there's a table in the corner of the ringside area. I'm not joking when I say I'd start a weapons match, and if there was no table, I'd quit and restart. No table, no deal. It's not all about the weapons though. Warzone was the first 3D wrestling game in history to feature a steel cage match, which is pretty cool. The sound of whipping your opponent into the deadly black bars is extremely satisfying. And who doesn't like to dive off the top of one of these sadistic structures? Do you notice anything weird though? Maybe something missing? Where the fuck are the ropes and ring posts? These are the types of decisions that really make you wonder what the hell the thought process was here. Playing as The Rock, Kane, British Bulldog, Owen, Hart, and the rest of these bruisers is all well and good, but wouldn't it be nice if we could create our own wrestler? Oh wait, we can. Warzone is the first 3D wrestling game to ever feature a create a wrestler mode, which is kinda crazy to think about. And yeah, I said 3D wrestling game. I'm well aware the Fire Pro games pioneered CAW mode, but those are 2D, so settle down. I remember my first ever created character was named Mr. Showtime. I don't know why I called him that. It's not even a great name, but that's where I landed. Commentary is a feature that would come and go in wrestling games between the late 90s and early 2000s. SmackDown Just Bring It had terrible commentary, but at least it was there. SmackDown Shut Your Mouth improved the feature big time, and then Here Comes the Pain took it out entirely. It's weird to think that we once had to wonder which wrestling games would and wouldn't feature color commentary. Who doesn't want to hear their favorite announcers in the broadcast booth? What's even weirder is that Warzone has Vince McMahon and JR sitting at the table, delivering commentary that may or may not be better than the current WWE games. Just listen to this.
We have a great match for our fans tonight.
Good God Almighty, it's Kane!
At nearly 7 feet, well over 300 pounds, he just might be unstoppable.
Pound for pound, Owen is considered one of the best technical wrestlers in the WWF.
He can do it all. He can take you out from any direction.
Owen Hart is out on his feet.
What a slam! The crowd goes crazy.
Shamrock knows what they want to see.
Shamrock had this match.
It's anybody's match now.
Here's the pin.
Quick escape.
It's way too early. He flipped him with those flying head scissors.
JR and Vince sound just like they did on TV. The emotion is there. It really sounds like they're watching the action unfold right in front of them. Compare this to the more recent WWE games, where Michael Cole and the boys sound like they're reading off a script.
WrestleMania against some of the biggest names of all time. Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Big Show, Triple H.
And let's not forget John Cena last year. I wouldn't mind seeing that again. That was amazing.
Completely devoid of the emotion they convey on weekly television. Warzone's commentary is its high point, for sure. And there's really no excuse as to why our current WWE games can't deliver these same caliber performances.
Tombstone piledriver put him 6 feet under.
But lucky for us, color commentary is not the only time we get to hear talent speak in this game.
You're the piece of the trash of the World Wrestling Federation could never be the championship material that I am. If you think you've got what it takes to put the choke chain on the British Bulldog, then think again. When I get through with you, there better be enough of you to scrape off the floor when you feel the wrath of the Bulldog.
Warzone's main attraction is the WWF Challenge mode. Here, we're presented with a stack of TVs, all of which represent an opponent standing in our way. Defeating these jabronis earns us championship gold, and if we play our cards right, we'll be rewarded with unlockable content, namely the rights to play as Dude Love and Cactus Jack. It's not a clear shot straight to the top though. Every here and there, one of our defeated rivals will climb back up and challenge us to a grudge match.
We are the nation! So you put me down. Big deal. I've been beat before, brother. And there ain't no way you're gonna do it twice.
I'd also like to draw some attention to the crowd chants. Pulling off a number of high-impact moves in a row will get the butts out of the seats, and the audience's support offers the players shorter stun windows and bigger damage multipliers.
Crowd is on its feet. I could get in there and wrestle with fans like these.
I always love this. As with any wrestling game I've ever played, there are several oddities that stick out to me like a sore thumb. And no, I don't mean these oddities. We've already covered the ropeless cage matches, and those god-awful generic poses, but what kind of downers is his referee on? Could he possibly count any slower?
That's one. Sweet chin music. Two.
The fans have totally lost it.
Who was it that said, every time a wrestler gets hit, I want them to grunt? Every single time, I mean it.
Great form.
They tangle.
Bret looks unstoppable now.
What's up with the blood flying from your opponent's head after a shot from a weapon, but they don't actually bleed themselves? Where the hell did that blood come from? I covered at the beginning of this video that WWF War Zone is extremely divisive. You're either like me, somebody who has great memories from 1998, but can see how this title hasn't exactly aged well, or you're on the other side, somebody who would rather walk on thumbtacks than come within 50 feet of this game. I've got a theory on this one, actually. I feel like most people who hate this game played it many years after it came out. If you're already well acquainted with the superior wrestlers like No Mercy and Revenge, sure, Warzone looks and plays like shit in comparison. But if you were there in 1998, experiencing this as the first ever 3D WWF game, odds are you had a good time. And wouldn't you know it, Warzone's reviews backed this theory up. GameSpot delivered an 8.6 out of 10, calling the game the best wrestling package ever released, and that it shouldn't be missed by anyone with even a passing interest in wrestling. Game Revolution graded Warzone with an A-. IGN settled on an 8 out of 10. The proof is in the pudding, Dan Dans. In 1998, Warzone was a big deal. I certainly don't scream Warzone's praises from the rooftops, as the game doesn't really stand the test of time. The graphics are dated, the controls are overcomplicated and stiff, and wrestling games just a few years later would bury this one in terms of roster size and overall features. With all that said though, I'll still never forget the times I had with Warzone. Back in the summer of 1998, I was just a little WCW mark. I was overjoyed that Bret Hart was in the game, and I played with him nearly every time. I learned so much about the WWF and its superstars through this game. And in the bedroom or in my backyard, I'd be mimicking the finishing move animations from Warzone on my Sting Bash and Brawler. WWF War Zone may not be the greatest of all time, or even near that conversation, but if I'm feeling crazy, I'll step back into this War Zone any day of the week. That's gonna do it, Dan-Dans. Thank you for tuning into another installment of Triangle X Squared Circle, the Wrestling Game Retrospective Series. I hope you enjoyed this look back at 1998's WWF War Zone on the PlayStation. If you didn't know, I go through the comments all the time, and I respond to each and every one of you guys because I love you and I appreciate you. Going through the comments lets me know which games you guys do and don't want to see, and I know that you guys are going to be so excited for the next installment of Triangle X Squared Circle. And that is why it is with great pleasure that I reveal the next game we're diving into is Def Jam Fight for New York. For whatever reason, this game is hard as fuck to find nowadays, and it's expensive as fuck too. But it's the holidays, I'm in a good fucking mood, and I feel like giving away a copy of Def Jam Fight for New York for the PlayStation 2. If you want to enter the giveaway, all you gotta do is sign up for the Patreon at any level. It could be $2. You can cancel right after the giveaway if you want, I don't give a shit. But there's plenty of exclusive content there that I think you'll want to stick around for. I will announce the winner of Def Jam Fight for New York when this episode drops. So if you're interested, feel free to sign up for the giveaway. It's going to be a good time. I can't wait to get this episode out to you guys because I know you're going to love it. I love you, and I will see you next time.
He drop kicked him.